Oh, here we go. If you've been coming here often, you know that what I love to do is to invite anyone who's here, if it's safe, to just begin to step into some slow time. And the easiest, quickest way to do that, the bridge between our body and our mind, between our now, like being present, and our living in the past and the future, is our breath. It is the perfect bridge for us to come into presence and be in our bodies without being in the swirl that becomes really normalized. So literally what we're doing is creating new neural pathways of awareness. So it isn't just random or silly that I invite you to do this. It literally is an invitation to get out of the two ways to be stuck in past or future and be here right now. We can't breathe in the past, in the future. We can only breathe in the present now. So I invite you to just begin to take a few breaths in through your nose and just out through your mouth. No need to change it, just being here with your breath, feeling how it feels in your body to breathe in and out, and just allowing anything that has felt static, heavy, burdened to still be, but just put it over here for now. Not be in your thoughts, not be in your awareness right now, just being here in your body, breathing. And as you do that, just observe, give a little space between who you be and what has been arriving in your world, and just observing it. Like, what is there right now? Like, if I had to say, for me, checking in, there is some, I don't know if I want to call it fear, or yeah, it feels sticky, a little bit like fear. There's a lot of things that are moving pieces right now. And I'm observing that that comes up. And so I'm just witnessing it and observing it and like, okay, there you are. There you are. You're allowed to be here. That's okay. Um, and there's also possibility. There is possibility. Like, I'm thinking of all the beauty and the possibility that can occur and come into my life, because I do believe it is so. So those two things exist right now in me. They are here. They come and go, and they are welcome. And so if you feel to check in the chat, I would love to hear what is um, in your awareness right now that's moving through you, that you're experiencing. I want to speak today about something that I was watching on Gaia TV, and it it got my attention immediately. It was Dr. Bruce Lipton, whose book, The Biology of Belief, I use that in my dissertation a lot. This idea that our beliefs, our inner dialogue, our words, our thoughts have a frequency, and they send out a signal. That is quantum physics. So the ancient mystics knew this, and now quantum physics is saying, "Oh yeah, we this is the way that it is," and it's always been that. We just finally are explaining it scientifically. I'm so curious what other um, discoveries are going to come as time moves forward, and we have a broader awareness and consciousness. But his whole theory, this was back in the 70s, that he was like, he's a neurologist that was studying these things, and he realized, oh my goodness, there's a difference between tonic and toxic environments in our biology, in our cells, and it comes from what? How do our cells and our body end up in dis-ease? It's because of our thoughts and our beliefs and our inner dialogue about ourselves, about the world, about people, others. And it comes from our conditioning, what we saw growing up, what we came to believe about life and about ourselves in relationship to life. So is our biology tonic, meaning supportive and full of peace and joy and love and supporting our system, our biology, our body in repair and peace and recovering? Or is it toxic, where there's dis-ease, discord in the system because of what we have come to believe? So this got my attention, and I wanted to, and I've talked about it before, but we're going to go a little deeper today. I also want to speak to this. I am so curious. I want to feel into this with you, and maybe you can respond, or maybe you can respond later privately to me. If you watch this later, I would love to hear where you're at with all of this and how this moves through you and what you've noticed in your own experience. So, what if something sacred is actually unfolding right now for us as a collective humanity? Um, have you noticed that there's a greater division between people in politics, in in all the areas of our lives? There is a huge division that we see between groups of people on so many levels. And there's a lot of people living in fear. Yes, there's a lot going on in politics and all of these things. So where do we land on that? And it's interesting to observe the different responses or reactions to what is happening in our world. So, as from my view, what I am observing and seeing as I sit in different groups with different people, it's very, even with my own clients, I have noticed that there is a return. There's a soft return of the divine feminine, of presence, of polarity, of personal power, really, with not with the fist, like power, but the power of love. And I speak to this a lot, but it's not just me. As I sit in some of these communities or even with clients, I see it happening in their lives as well. And it's very beautiful. I want to speak to this. I want to bring awareness to the difference between reaction and creation. If we look at those two words, they're very similar in how they're written. Their etymology is interesting. When we react, when we're reactive, if something happens out here, some circumstance or some conversation with people or whatever, and we're triggered and we're reacting, we are basically re-enacting what has already been. So we're taking what is that feels uncomfortable. If we have a reaction to it, we're heightening and staying in the same drama, the same trauma, and we're keeping in a loop, so to speak. When we create rather than react, we are bringing forth what has never been. It's something new. It's alchemy. It's taking energy that comes in, and instead of mirroring it right back, we actually are taking it and creating something new if we are aware. So the etymology and the energy behind these two ways to respond to anything in life, reaction comes from the Latin creatio. It's creactio. I don't know. I'm not saying that right. If I take my Italian, um, and Emily, you might know this. Re is again, and agere is to do or to act. So it implies repetition, a cycle, a reflex, a doing again. That is reaction. And creation comes from the Latin creare, which is to bring forth, to produce, and to make something grow. It's generative. It's movement from the unseen, which is feminine in nature, hidden, right? And into the seen, which is masculine. A yin, a true yin, creative, hidden, gestating force, when it's true in its nature, Its intent is to create something new. And from that will be the yang movement, the true expression of this yin nature. And it's from feminine to masculine. So I want to talk about these two energies. So reaction, sending out what came in exactly as a repeat of what has come in. So reacting often arises from urgency and survival, control, or defensiveness. Like our ego is saying, oh, no, 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 you can't say that. Or I need to defend myself, or I need to prove myself. Maybe even I'm proving myself to myself. I'm proving this thing that they said, I need to prove it to myself. So I'm going to react. And that actually is an energy of wounded masculine. It's acting without a pause. It's fast, it's rigid, and it's disconnected from our heart. And that is wounded. I must do something. I must fix this. I must protect myself. Do you see how this is? It's not the divine masculine that is wounded. It's an unhealed warrior thing, one who forgets to give space and to slow down and to breathe and be intentional and conscious in a response rather than being reactive. And I would say that the systems that we have been raised in, largely the overculture, whether you want to call it patriarchal, I don't care what we call it, but these energies that we have witnessed and we have seen them modeled everywhere, like in our leadership, all the way down, down, down to our families, everywhere, because we're human and this is our experience, right? It's been from a wounded masculine and a wounded feminine. So let's talk about, I want to talk about, well, let me go into the unconscious creation, which is a wounded feminine. So the unconscious creation is, it's drifting, it's not grounded, it's kind of dreamy and scattered. It's the feminine without a spine, always giving, always yielding, being people pleasing, but not really aware of the dynamics that are playing out. So when we start to be more aware of the energies that we're carrying, how we can slow down and give a pause between what's coming in and what our choice is, how we're going to show up consciously or unconsciously, in a wounded way or a more whole, healed way. Right? So conscious feminine is creation. It's rooted in intention. It is sacred feminine in motion. It's receptive, it's intuitive, it's rhythmic, it gestates. It's always creating. It wants to create new things. It wants to be creative and think of new solutions to things. It listens. It collaborates with the unseen. That intuitive piece, the sacred bowl, whether we still have a womb or not, that energy still lives in our sacred bowl, in that space. And I trust what wants to move through me. I bring it forth with presence and with love. It's an offering, right? As well as a very sacred, conscious feminine receives. So it takes in what is given, and then it chooses with intention how to respond. It's not reactive. And sometimes conscious feminine will choose. There's no response for that. And that's a choice, because maybe that's the right choice right then, is to not respond. Let me give some more space. Does that even deserve a response? I can send it love, bless it, and let it be, but I'm not going to get entangled in the drama or the trauma of this. Okay. Can you see the difference? Does any of this make sense? So if both can wound, both can heal. So unconscious reaction and creation, unconscious reaction is to show up in, can also show up in the feminine when there's overwhelm, there's disconnection, and emotional over-identification, right? So we can become over-identified with our thoughts and our emotions about those thoughts, and now we're reacting, right? We're reactive. Unconscious creation, we talked about that, being kind of ungrounded and kind of dreamy and overgiving. So conscious reaction, so conscious masculine from the healed masculine is sacred action. It has clean and clear boundaries. It's decisive truth. When I say decisive, I think of like a sword, the sword of truth, coming in and cutting away what is not true, what is not real, which drama and trauma and all of that. Yes, trauma can be real, but when we're projecting it out onto others, that's not someone else's reality. And so a powerful no rooted in love, not fear, is a conscious masculine. It's not reaction, it is informed response rooted in our soul. So both the feminine and the masculine live in every human being. So this, I don't know if you've ever heard about the sacred inner union, the sacred marriage. And it isn't just something we seek in another relationship. It's actually what we're meant to embody within ourselves, to bring into equanimity these two ways to be that are on the spectrum and they live in us. We have masculine and feminine energies because we live in a world where there's polarity, it's and duality, right? The contrast. So one makes the other true. We have a left and a right brain and they function differently. Our left brain is more linear. It's pragmatic and it's always trying to fix and find solutions, and our right brain is emotional. It's where our trauma gets stuck a lot. And so when we do EMDR as therapists, when I work with people, it's the right side of the brain that so much of our trauma gets stuck in. So when you're doing bilateral stimulation, whether it's tapping or buzzing or even walking, that's a way to go out on a walk and start processing some of your overwhelm, some of your trauma, and thinking about it and letting it come up while you're walking. That is bilateral stimulation. You're doing EMDR for and with yourself, whether you're aware of it or not, by the way. That can be self-healing right there. But to bring into your awareness the things that have felt heavy and traumatic in your life and allow it to come up and be felt. Like to cry, that is so healing. It's a response. It's your body's response to trauma that has been held. So the feminine receives the vision, right? She's holding on to the creation. The masculine gives it form. Together, they birth a new way to be. So when we think about whether we're going to react or create, that creative part is both masculine and feminine when it's done consciously and with intention. So here's a question, like a prompt. If you're watching this and can write this down and like pause and write this in as a journal prompt. And when I send out this email, you will have these prompts for you to slow down and maybe self-reflect. Where in my life am I reenacting old stories? Where am I open to creating something new from truth rather than fear? When I say reenacting old stories, what I mean literally is the 95% of how we think, believe, and react, how we show up in the world it's unconscious, it's below our awareness. So if we are reenacting old stories, we are being reactive, triggered all the time. And that is a beautiful thing if we're aware. When we're aware of it, we can say, oh, it's still sticky there. I get to, I don't have to, I get to. What a privilege it is to be the one who tends to ourselves and says, if that's triggering me, whether it's something that someone said or a circumstance, an experience, anything, or just a memory, and it comes up, do we keep running and getting busier and keeping ourselves so distracted, or do we slow down, take a breath, and be here now and tend to ourselves in a new way? Literally becoming the one who stays, who doesn't get busy, who doesn't run, who doesn't dismiss it, but actually turns to it and says, how can I respond to this old belief, this old way to react Now that's when healing and change can occur, because we're actually tending to ourselves, the parts of ourselves that never felt seen, heard, or understood. So, okay, we talked about our thoughts not being just visitors. They are the gardeners. I love this metaphor. The gardeners of our body. Our thoughts are the gardeners of our bodies. Let's talk about that. So we talked about toxic thoughts equal toxic chemistry, biology, and tonic, loving thoughts create a healing chemistry in here. And our body follows what we believe. So if our beliefs are toxic, for example, I am not lovable. I don't matter. I am not safe to show up as me in this world, or the world is not safe, or these people are not safe, or I am not enough, or there's just so many iterations of this that we all as humans come to believe, because we don't have the capacity before we're 7. All of these beliefs become very real for us because we're in theta state as children, which is right before we go into alpha and delta states of sleep. Right when we're in theta is where it's like a hypnotic state. So as children, all we have to do to be programmed and conditioned into these beliefs, these things that are happening all around us, is we're just watching it. We're watching it and we're recording. What I see must be truth. If I see my parents fighting, if I see people being mean, if I see people being scared and reacting, anger, abuse, emotional, physical, sexual, all of the things that happen as humans, our experiences are downloaded as truth, because we don't have the necessary tools when we're that young to question, is that true? And that is curious, because it wouldn't be so unless it was meant to be that way. We are here to forget, to really experience the contrast of what we actually are, that we are abundant, that we are love, that we are whole. How do you remember your wholeness if you've never forgotten? So the conditioning while we're young is actually the perfect circumstances, the perfect curriculum for us to learn and remember. If we think of it that way, if we think of life as our perfect benevolent guide back home to ourselves, saying, how does that feel when you believe that you're not enough? How does this keep playing out in your reality? Look at all the circumstances of your life. If there's any suffering at all, it's because you have an error in your beliefs, because our true nature is not suffering. It is joy and it is love. So the metaphor here, if our body is a garden and our thoughts are the water, we're watering our body, literally the chemistry of our body, like water. And our body is 70% water. And the studies about thoughts and words that are spoken to petri dishes of water and then frozen, and how they are disordered and like completely like broken and disordered when the thoughts and the words that are given and spoken to these petri dishes of water. And then when there are thoughts of peace and love and joy and beautiful symphonic music that is ordered, guess what is created in those frozen petri dishes is like snowflakes with perfect order. And our words are the sun. So we're watering and giving sun to our body chemistry all the time. What beliefs am I watering today? What am I watering in my chemistry all the time without even bring that 95% of subconscious awareness that we aren't aware is, whoops, okay. Someone was trying to get on here, just letting them on. Okay, so I want to talk about, it doesn't matter um, what religion, what beliefs you have, whether you are, it doesn't matter what religion you are or what your beliefs are, the power of presence, of prayer, and intention are so powerful. I'm curious if any of you, you can think this to yourselves, you can put it in the chat, however you want to do this. But if we believe in the power of prayer, that it can shift things, why wouldn't our thoughts, emotions, and our silent love also ripple out through the field? Think about this. So when we are sitting in a meditation or we're praying for someone who's ill, we've all had experience with this. I can't imagine that you haven't, but where we are pleading, almost pleading or sending out love or thoughts of care for a person, a family, a situation, that it can become, that there can be a solution, that there can be more love and less fear, more ease instead of dis-ease. Why wouldn't our thoughts, because aren't our prayers just thoughts given with intention? So our emotions and our thoughts and our silent being also sends ripples out into the field. So prayer is literally a frequency, if whatever you want to call it, intention, meditation, they're all forms of prayer. Presence is being there in the now moment with all that is, whether you call it Heavenly Father or the universe or the cosmos or the great mystery. It's tangible. It's there. It's so real. And it's not passive. It's power. And this is what's starting to return. People are turning towards, they're realizing the power they have to send out a signal of love and have it change and shift things because they believe it is so. So the question becomes, what am I sending love toward today? And what becomes possible when I believe that it matters? So if I believe that it matters, that I do send out ripples of love rather than fear, what starts to shift in myself, in my energy here, and in the collective? So this is what's interesting. I don't know how much you have read or studied, but I've spent some years now studying these these the intersection of quantum physics, like science, and spirituality, because they do support each other. So this idea that, we need to go out and we need to save the world, but look at the world is in chaos, right? So it can be so disheartening. But the truth is, you don't need to save the world, but you can shape the collective field. Like when I just said, our thoughts and our words and our beliefs actually send out a frequency, a ripple, and it ripples out and it affects everything because we are all in this. We're all living in the same soup collectively. So they call it morphic resonance, and patterns repeat more easily once they've been established in a collective and a personal. So if our pattern is fear, guess what goes out into the collective and becomes this bigger, larger thing in the collective? So if just the opposite, the converse of that is also true. When we're sending out love, joy, trust, abundance into the field, it goes out into the collective. And there's this, I forget who came up with this theory. It's called the 100th monkey theory. And they were watching, or the effect, and they were watching populations of monkeys. And once a critical mass shifts within one of the collective, up to 10% of the collective, if that shift has taken place, that shift becomes collective. So that's the theory, is that if 10%, if you had 10 monkeys and one of those monkeys had a shift in their perception and way that they were behaving, then the other 10, the other 9 would also shift, and it would become collective in all 10, because the one of the 10, the 10% became, well, for good or bad, right? Collectively, out of fear or love. So knowing this is power, because it means that we are not just alone here. We are a part of something so large and beautiful that when we believe that, we start to believe that we can affect the whole by our thoughts. And if you're here today, I know that what lives in you is love and a desire to live in closer harmony with the love and the wholeness that you are. So even just that simple fact means that all the time you're probably sending out ripples of love. But do you know that, and do you believe it? That's the thing. If you believe it is true, then it is. And it's an imprint, and it's a possibility. So the question is, where am I becoming an invitation for others to maybe do the same because they feel me, just by being me, just by showing up as me, in love, with all that is, sending out ripples of love. That's beautiful. And so the invitation here is of choice. So the duality that we talk about, the contrast that feels heavy, that feels like a burden from our past, our childhood, it exists not to destroy us, but it exists to wake us up to our wholeness. That contrast is the experience of what we are not. So there's this quote that says, in the absence of that which is not, that which is not. So what that means is, if I am love, let's say I am love, just like we all are, right? But if I believe I am love, the absence of what I am not. So me experiencing not love, fear, creates me being love. Does that make sense? So me experiencing the contrast actually helps me remember and become more loving, because I have experienced the opposite of it. And that's the world we live in. So we're here to experience all of the contrast of what we are not, so that we can expand into actually our wholeness, which is abundance and love and joy and trust. Trust that this duality, experience of duality, is not here to destroy us or to break us. We are not broken. So right now, what's happening in the world, where we're seeing all this division, right? It's mirroring our own, everyone collectively, internal split between the wounded and the conscious masculine and feminine energies in us. So we came here to choose. We literally came here to choose again and again and again. When we're experiencing the contrast, fear or love, what is my choice? Control or curiosity? Contraction or remembrance? What will I choose in every now moment? And that is a gift. Our gift to actually choose becomes our power through the power of love over and over. And here is a prompt, a question, another question here. When was a time that I chose love when fear would have been so much easier? To react in fear instead of giving space and choosing, I'm either going to transmute this and send compassion and love back to this person who clearly is hurting, Or I'm going to choose to stay right here with myself while I'm experiencing this unsettling thing. And I'm going to stay and I'm going to give myself love rather than fear. These are choices. And they may seem simple as I'm talking about them, but they really are that simple. They really are. It's a choice. Choose in any now moment how we're going to show up for ourselves first. And that lays the foundation for how we show up with everything else in our lives, especially in our relationships. It's so hard to give to someone else what we have withheld from ourselves: love, acceptance, embracing, abundance, kindness, charity. How can we really give that out if it hasn't upwelled and is just flowing naturally? It will seem efforted. If we're having to effort our care and our concern and our service for others, pay attention. If it feels like a burden, it's probably because it hasn't become a natural thing for you to give to yourself. And that may seem like a mean thing that I'm saying, but it's been my experience over and over with myself. And as I sit with clients and I see the shift that finally takes place in their lives, and it's because they choose to stay and give it here first. And then it naturally flows to their children, to their spouses, their partners, their colleagues, their friends, the strangers, everyone. All of life becomes a form of like grace because you gave grace here first. So that was a lot that I spoke to today. Thank you for being here. If anyone would like any support for something that's moving through them, that's why I'm here. I always start with kind of teaching some things that maybe you've never heard of, or maybe you're wanting to become more aware of, or that's been kind of lingering off on the periphery somewhere. And so as I speak to it, I've noticed, because I've had several of you reach out afterwards and say, thank you, that's a new thought I hadn't thought of, or thank you, that deepens something I've already been considering or aware of or dipping my toe in. Um, and so these are beautiful things. If they resonate with you in any way, keep going, keep trusting your path to that really healing is really deeper and deeper liberation, freedom from the things we came to believe about ourselves and life before we knew better. So we can finally say, is it really true that I'm not enough? If I'm suffering anyway, there is an error in that thought. And that's where freedom begins, is to clear the residue of that old way subconsciously to have that playing out over and over. When it gets strong enough or heavy enough, will we finally turn towards it with so much compassion, courage. Yes, it takes courage to do that, to make that choice. But then once you've done it, you finally get over the hump and you're like, oh, actually, I can show up for myself. And who else would I rather have show up for me than me? It's really what we're doing here. It's not just creating an alliance with the only person who can never leave us. It's actually the aspect of ourselves, our soul, that's not broken, that we're creating an alliance with, that aspect that is never not there. It's always there. And it's always guiding us. And it's always true. But we can't hear her, him, whoever's watching this, we can't hear our soul if we're so busy. Or we're automatically thinking things that are creating a toxic body response. And our nervous system is so dysregulated, it scares us to death. The idea of getting off the treadmill, the loop of busyness, the loop of overthinking, of swirling, because if we slow down, that's scary. What would happen if I actually took my finger off of the button, the power button? What if I turned the power off on all those beliefs and I actually sat with myself and started to believe something new? But we wouldn't ever know what that's like to get to the other side of it if we never take our finger off and let things slow down a little bit. That has been my lived experience. And now I've sat with too many people as it's been their experience. Now I'm like, there is medicine here. That's why I'm teaching this. That's why I'm here. I'm not getting paid for this, but I love to share it because I see how much it's shaping people's new way to be. And it's bringing so much liberation and freedom from old limiting prisons, really. They're prisons of belief. So, as you return to your breath before we close here, if no one is going to raise their hand and seek some support, then just let's return to breath, just stillness, sitting here, taking deep breaths, and allowing some stillness to come. Just let yourself wonder about the things you have heard today. Let yourself soften around them, even if it means coming to the edge of some uncomfortability and softening right there at the edge of that, and allowing yourself to remember deeply, deeply. Your soul remembers. And when you can align with your soul more and more, it will be easier for you to stay aligned with that remembrance. So I guess I ask you today, you can answer this for yourselves, whether you're watching this or here now. What landed for you today? What stirred something in you? What resonated? And what of all the invitations, what invitation are you walking away with today? If something moved in you, lovely, lovely. Be curious. Stay curious about what you felt. So, all the things we spoke about today, tonic versus toxic thoughts and beliefs and words, what they do to our, literally to our biology, our cells, and our chemistry, whether we're creating a toxic environment full of dis-ease, or whether we're creating an environment, a garden, if you will, of abundance and joy and enoughness, of the power of our thoughts, like a prayer, sending out ripples of presence, of patterns that we stay in, looped in, if we're not aware of, or if we're like, oh my goodness, I just realized what that feels like in my body. I don't like that. I can change that. There's a possibility. So that's the last thing. What is possible now? What world opens up to us when we believe that we are not stuck? When we believe that we are more than enough, that we are safe, that this world is safe. What happens in our nervous system when we're not trying to just feel safe and survive anymore? We move beyond those old ways to be, those old patterns, and we start creating new neural pathways through epigenetics, through our belief that it can be so. It opens up so many more possibilities, so many more solutions, which is a conscious feminine trait. Everything becomes possible when we believe it is so. And now from that space, we can create anything from ease and from joy and from love and desire, following our heart. Okay. Thank you for being here today. I hope that something here landed for you. Whether you're listening now or watching this later, listening to it later, I love and believe in you. Thank you for being here. I wish you a beautiful Friday and a beautiful weekend. Okay. Ciao. So much love for you all.